We're in a new market of innovation right now, aren't we?
Yep, the biggest. Like how important it is, just from innovation in mindset, innovation in business,
Right.
and it's just that society, just the way we think, right?
Mm-hmm.
We gotta constantly be innovating. Like, what are some hurdles in innovating? Like, what are some things that can stop people from innovating and stuff like that?
Well, what do they say? The old expression, right? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
And I think that's very true because you look at right now, we're in the middle of a myriad of changes, right? You've got an emerging automobile market for electric vehicles over the last 4 to 5 years. That's for that industry. Right now, in a real microcosm, and yet something that is global, is what I'm wearing even right now. I mean, who would have thought years ago that the line at Joann's Fabrics would be out the door 20 people long? I went to Sprouts the other day to get groceries, and Joann's Fabrics is next door. And Joann's Fabric, there's literally 20 people in line. And I asked my wife when I got home, why is everybody at Joann's? And she said, they're all making masks. So it's this idea of innovation that people are having to get creative because necessity is a mother of invention, which segues into innovation.
Right.
And, it's causing people, I'm going to pull this off now. It's causing people to have to recreate, to innovate. And so, you've got this people regurgitating, basically old, maybe even disposable materials into a nice face mask to help us with the COVID-19.
That's smart. Yeah, super smart.
Yeah, it really is. And it's innovative. And yes, face masks are of old, but who in the world would have thought 6 months ago of putting a cloth, I hate to say it, but it looks like, female underwear, for lack of a better word, on your face, for worldwide. It never ceases to amaze me, the creativity of people. And a lot of people are doing it because there's financial gain involved, right? And I think innovation, by and large, is motivated by a few different factors. Primarily, or most speaking, is money-wise, right? We innovate as a springboard to somehow generate a higher level of revenue.
How do you feel about that? Do you feel like it's wrong to be capitalizing in a time like this?
Well, I think it's a fantastic idea. I mean, without the motivation, and not to get on a political scale, but this is why capitalism, by and large, works. I mean, how come more drugs are created here in America? And I don't want to get on the pharmaceuticals and all that, but how come they're created here more? How come more innovation, by and large, comes out of the USA? Because we're motivated by this basis of reward, right, and risk. So the risk equals the reward a lot of times, not always, but for the most part. So whereas in countries that aren't that way, that are based on a different economy, you don't have as great punctuated jumps in creativity and innovation as you might hear. I'm not saying they don't have any, because the human spirit in and of itself cannot be stifled to the point where it's no longer creative or innovative. But it's definitely going to be bolstered in a much greater level when there's a much greater reward available to people. And so we have that here, and that luxury here in the USA. And that's why 45 million people try to get into this country every single year.
We have the resources, right?
Well, it's not just the resources, but we have the basis of the platform that if you want to do it, you can. Right. Yeah, and there are hoops to jump through, and there's, obviously obstacles, and everyone has different kinds of obstacles, and those can go on ad infinitum, ad nauseum. But for the most part, the opportunity would probably be the best word, is actually there to some degree or another. So yeah, innovation, back to your first point, it's extremely valuable, because innovation is what catapults us to become even greater. It does, as humans, as an economy. And so your question to me was, when I threw it out there, that it's based on a few factors. One is the investment, the money, the monetary return on that. Another one is people see altruistic or greater value in things. So, for example, innovation may come in the form of things that are going to keep the earth cleaner, right? Like regulations. Now, a lot of times people, capitalists are blamed as being, not liking regulation, but that's not true. They do, because regulation a lot of times brings about new industries. So when you have, let's say a regulation that says certain people have to wear certain kinds of safety gear to do their certain jobs, well, that creates an industry now for people to create safety gear.
Right.
So regulations are bad, and in the end, the value is that it protects the people, of course, that it was regulated for, or to protect them. And so there's a lot of value in that. A lot of things are environmental based, right? We create innovation to create a vehicle, diesel vehicles of old, or fossil fuel vehicles of any kind, gas engines. Have now been innovated where they create less pollutants. And regulations came in, the government forced them to make a much cleaner burning vehicle. And so what's this? I wasn't in LA at the time, but I understand, like I think it was the mid 80s, they used to have, I forget what they called them. They're like fog days or haze days or some smog days. And so kids weren't allowed to go outside at recess and play because the air pollution was so bad. And that's no longer a problem, even though we have more people now in LA than we had back then.
Right. And that's due to the change of...
Due to the change, and innovation occurred. Right. Innovation occurred, created less tailpipe emissions out of the vehicle, yada, yada, yada. And then you take that to the next level. Now you've got electric vehicles, which have, for lack of argument, no tailpipe emissions. They have other pollutants, but they have no tailpipe emissions. So,
and tailpipe emissions. Sorry to interrupt. But tailpipe emissions, that's really what's hazardous when it comes down to like internal combustion vehicles.
Well, yeah, and don't forget, before I think it was 76, you didn't have catalytic converters on cars, which it goes engine, catalytic converter, muffler, and then your tailpipe. And the catalytic converter, of course, converts carbon. Convert is a loose term. Converts carbon monoxide to carbon dioxide, so that way that the elements are filtered into the environment better and less hazardous, and they assimilate better into the environment out here. But the idea is that before 76, we had a lot of vehicles on the road that were emitting carbon monoxide. A very dangerous tailpipe emission. So yeah, tailpipe emissions by and large, even still today with modern vehicles, is probably the greatest contributor because it's on such a massive scale. I mean, the fact that we have, single car driving apparatuses, right? I mean, the carpool lane is because most people don't carpool. They're one person per car. So you take all these people in the greater Southern California area and they're all driving one car. That is a boatload of tailpipe emissions.
Right.
And if that can be mitigated by the innovation of such things as a catalytic converter in 76, taking it forward now 40 to 50 years, and now we all of a sudden have electric vehicles on the market, which are by no means dominating the market, but they've got they're creeping up in their value. And at the same time, what it's causing car manufacturers to do, if they want to keep combustion engines, it's causing them to create a more efficient vehicle, less tailpipe emission vehicle in a gas or a fuel combustion engine in order to compete with electric vehicles. So it's really a win-win all the way around. And of course, we're also trying to create vehicles that with innovation that, or in anything for that matter, any industry, we're trying to create things that have a less of an impact, economic or environmentally speaking.
Well, yeah, both too, right? Economically too. That we're trying to give people something they can afford, but at the same time help the environment, right? I mean, Tesla's. I mean, obviously there's cheaper, eco-friendly cars.
Right.
Right. But a lot of people, if they're gonna buy a car that's eco-friendly, I feel like people would want to test them because it's just friendly all the way around, like technologically and all that stuff. What do you think? Like,
well, it is. One of the great benefits of the Tesla vehicle is because they were one of the progenitors in this, right? They're the first ones out of the gate. To go with an all-electric vehicle. Well, Chevy did it back with the EV1 back in the, I think it was the 80s.
Right.
But for the most part, on a massive scale, and a popular scale. And they do things like that are easy. So instead of having to take your vehicle to a service center or back to the dealer to get updates done to it, like on a regular fuel or gas combustion engine, you know, an idiot light comes on sometimes in your car, right? Those little flashing lights on your screen in any of the fossil fuel vehicles. A regular gas propelled motor engine will, you know, result in you having to take it back to the dealer to clear the code. Well, not always, but a lot of times. And with the Tesla, they do it all remotely. You know, if you buy a 2015 Tesla, the software updated. Literally, a 2015 Tesla with 10 miles is the exact same 2020 Tesla with 0 miles or 10 miles on it.
That's a good point.
It's the same vehicle.
I never thought about it like that. Like,
yeah, and until they change the body style, it's basically a brand new vehicle, despite the mileage. You know, you put miles on a vehicle, but besides that, it's the same thing. So you're getting these constant updates on the vehicle, whereas with other manufacturers, they're constantly changing body designs, which I understand that there's good reason for that. Styles do change. If you don't change the style, no one's going to buy your new car. There are things to it, and maybe more efficiency. You get into things like, you know, what do you call it? The coefficient of lag on a vehicle. So you take a vehicle with a less sleek body pattern, you're going to get less fuel economy. You take a vehicle that's lower, sleeker, designed better, airfoils around it, et cetera, that are able to slice through the air better, you're going to get a more efficient vehicle. So things change and they grow. But for the most part, Tesla has remained the same. Their vehicle styles are the same, the X, the S, and now the Y, and of course the Model 3. And so it may be years until we actually see a body style change from them. Right. Yeah.
Personally, your personal preference, like what's one company that, you know, innovates all the time or like that you really look up to? As far as,
you know, it's a great question. Are we talking about like solely the automotive industry?
Yeah, or just in general, just for the topic of innovation.
Sure. You know, I think one area of innovation that a lot of times we, unfortunately, when we're thinking of innovation, we always think new and different, like these areas that are going to be significantly different or look different or be a different platform. Ford had this issue years ago. Okay, there was a Ford diesel motor or engine that was put in. It was a 7.3 liter diesel engine, and it was built until 2002 was the last year, and it went in all their full-size trucks for the most part if you ordered a diesel, and it's a venerable motor. It lasts forever, but it put out a significant amount of pollutants. So to deal with that, they came out with I believe it was a 6 liter, I believe, and it was a total bomb. I mean, it was horrible motor, horrible. And it was from 2003 till I think 7 or 8, somewhere in there. And those 4 years, it's like you run for the hills with that engine. Now, there's been aftermarket companies that have innovated in order to fix the bugs in that engine. So now you can buy them, make those changes, and it's not as bad. But for a while, the new innovation was a significant downturn for them. Right. So I don't always see innovation as complete change. And I think people think of it that way. Oh, it's innovative, it's new, it's going to be wonderful. Well, not necessarily, because then you take companies like Toyota, who literally in almost every Toyota engine, almost every one, if you just do like regular maintenance, you will get more miles out of that engine than you could shake a stick at. I mean, hundreds of thousands of miles with literally trouble-free. And because all they do is they keep just re-innovating on the same engine, making it more efficient, more efficient. Right. So they're innovative, but they're not changing the complete format of the engine. So they've really got a good fit. You asked what company. I really think Toyota's got a good fix on how they deal with some of these challenges that they face. They don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. They go ahead and create just new slight innovations, tweaks to their existing platforms, what they already have. They typically, historically, don't change complete engines. Now, they do sometimes, but historically speaking, they don't. I mean, they had what they call the 22R engine for years. That is an amazing little 4-cylinder engine that will just go forever. So Every company takes a different perspective on things.
Right.
Yeah, and so innovative, again, doesn't always mean completely new. It can mean just little tiny tweaks. So I think in the automotive industry, Toyota's done a great job at that.
Right.
I'm not saying Ford and others haven't, but they do a really good job.
Yeah, when it comes down to innovation, like it doesn't necessarily have to be like something super new that people should be excited about. It should just be like a small tweak, you said, right?
Well, that's right. It's just being aware and being willing to make changes.
Yeah, and that, like, same sentence, like innovation, like, is it to add more value to someone's life? Would you say that?
For sure.
Constantly innovating. Okay.
Yeah, very much so. And truth be told, I mean, I look at iPhones, right? And what was wrong with an iPhone 4? It was fine. It did the job. Then the 5, right? Then the 6, then the 6S, then the 7, then the 8. And so we're keeping these new innovative products. But quite honestly, if we never had anything different than the 4, and then we jump to the 7, and then you jump to the 10, or the X, whatever you want to call it, really, I mean, it is innovative, but by and large, we were fine with it. But the human spirit needs change. We gravitate towards that. And so what that does is that propels or bolsters and encourages companies to produce new products to become, I mean, McDonald's is the best at that. That's a tried and true company. I mean, if they probably didn't do anything forever, they'd still maintain their Golden Arches theme and kids would love and flock to McDonald's. But they continually reinvent themselves. They're always being innovative. You know, now they're frappuccinos and whatever they've had for the last few years.
Healthy. They have a healthy menu.
Yeah, they're always innovating themselves to keep themselves on the cutting edge. They probably don't even have to do it.
Have you seen Super Size Me?
Yeah, I saw clips of it years ago.
Yeah, they talk about McDonald's and how it just constantly feeds what's it called, like just fattening food. So they try to remarket the entire company. I don't know if you saw that part, to be more healthy, but it was actually the same thing. It's actually the same thing. They just rewarded things. They redesigned stuff, and they just added lettuce to their burgers.
Yeah, I believe it.
What about the future, Jeff? How do you think the future looks for everybody? Like, do you feel like self-driving cars are gonna be a legit thing pretty soon? Like, where people just drive around and sleeping in their cars?
Boy, that's a tough one. I don't know if we're ready for that as a people just yet.
Not yet.
There's something about autonomy that is very, very particular to the human spirit. And so even though we talk about an autonomous car, what I mean by autonomy and the human spirit is we like to maintain some level of control. And we want to make sure that the person next to us have a level of control as well. So when you look at the guy next to you and Bob's not driving the car, but napping in his seat, I don't know if you'd have, social mayhem or not. I don't know. It could be a little bit of chaos for a while. So I don't know how close we are to that. I think the technology is pretty darn close to being there, quite honestly. And truth be told, cars might have a better reaction level than humans. We're highly distracted, right? We're very distracted people. I think I mentioned on a previous podcast, when I ride my motorcycle and I split traffic, I look at everybody's side mirrors or driver window.
Yeah, you think for them, right?
Oh, and 99% of people are on their phones in traffic. And I'm watching them, look down, back up, down, back up. They are completely glued to their phone, barely looking up once in a while. And they always fade into between the lanes and out of the lanes. So, probably a self-driving vehicle for them might be a better option. But I don't know if as a human beings, I don't know if we're quite ready for that yet.
Yeah, there's a lot of anxiety.
There sure is. Instead of the anti-range anxiety show, we're going to be the, anti-autonomous car show.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy, man. Like, I just feel like as the future, like, unfolds itself, there's just a lot of things going on that still haven't been used, right? Because we're not used to it as people. Like AI and stuff like that. I don't know if you heard of AI.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yep. Well, and AI goes on in a lot of places.
5G.
Yeah, that's actually we do a lot of work on 5G stuff in another company with Sheets Contracting as far as EMF mitigation in homes.
What is that?
Well, electromagnetic frequency is what's caused a lot by I don't want to get into it too much because it gets pretty involved.
Okay.
But basically, cell towers in general, and the new 5G network that's blasting. There's a big argument out right now that the EMF fields that are created by 5G are potentially very dangerous to the human condition, if you will. And to some people, they're more impactful than others. And so there are ways to help mitigate that in your home or in your business or around your life. Some people firmly believe that cell phones, I've actually had clients in the past that they have their pants custom tailored with anti-EMF lining in the pockets when they put their phone in there, the EMF, because some of them got prostate cancer and they believe it came from their cell phone. Women there's been studies that have come out, again, it's a very general loose here, that the women's store where they don't have any pockets or wearing a dress, they'll store their phone in their bra when they're walking around. And some research has been done that shows the exact imprint of the cell phone and its damaging effects on women and breast cancer. So, again, it depends on which side of the coin you're on and which one you're going to argue for or against. But right. the evidence is there to some degree or another,
yeah, so
and we don't know yet.
Yeah, so 5G is pretty powerful, right?
It's extremely powerful. Yeah, and that word radiation conjures up all kinds of, what's that called? The movies that aren't real and books that aren't real, fiction. It conjures up all kinds of fictional things in people's minds about radiation. But I mean, it is. And there's radiation that comes from microwaves, right? You shouldn't stand within a certain distance of microwaves or stare into them when they're going off. There's radiation that's caused by a lot of things, but there are other groups that are out now that are very anti 5G. And there's some merit to that. There really is on some level or another. Well, it remains to be seen how much, but
well, of course, until it's controlled. I mean, there's a lot of benefits that can come from 5G, though, right? As far as communication.
Well, bandwidth is amazing,
right?
And we're loading up. We especially as Americans want our cake and want to eat it too, right? So we unfortunately want all the benefits without either at least acquiescing to the side effects, the pejorative side effects. So the challenge can be are we willing to live with the downside of what we want for the upside? Or how can we still get most of the upside and really shrink down the downside? And that's where some regulations come in that are helpful to help. And again, that creates and innovates a whole new industry. How can we help this along? And that has an economic and financial implications that are typically quite positive in the end. So I think unfortunately we see these diametrically opposed, right, ideas of environmentalism, capitalism, or economic freedom, whatever the case may be. And so we want to not jump into that necessarily and go, wait a minute, how can we put the two together and make them work and catapult us to the next level, but also not putting ourselves in grave danger? And how do we think about ourselves, our posterity, those that are coming after us for future generations, so that their lives are even healthier and better than our own have been? So what can we do about that? And that brings about innovation.
I feel like with all this thing going on, like coronavirus and stuff like that, I wonder if future generations will like connect to that and see like the difference that it made in the world as far as what is that thing called in the air again?
COVID-19?
No, smog. Is it smog?
Smog.
Yeah. What was I gonna say about that?
Well, you were talking about how our future generations will look back on COVID-19, right?
Yeah.
And is the question, will they look back on COVID-19 and say, what good came out of that?
Yeah, because before COVID-19, like LA looked horrible. You know what I'm saying? Like all in the air.
Mm-hmm.
There's the word. I'm just missing the word. It's not
Okay.
smog. It's the stuff that releases into the air from the cars, from the emission pipes,
Oh, tailpipe?
tailpipe emissions.
Tailpipe emissions, or CO2,
Yeah,
or CO
it is
for
smog,
carbon
right? I
dioxide?
think it is smog.
Yeah, smog. It's just a
Yeah,
general term.
yeah. Like I wonder if they'll be more motivated to think more eco-friendly. You know what
Well,
I'm
I
saying?
think
And
so.
buy more electric
They're growing
cars.
up in a different era. You know, and every era
Yeah,
that comes along comes with it. You know, that's why you have these generational names, right? Gen Z, Gen X,
oh
Gen
yeah.
Y, Millennials, and there are ways to describe each generation that aren't true of everyone, and not every single thing is true, but a lot of ways it is very true. But then again, and a lot of times, you know, the older crowd, people like myself, 49, will look down and, you know, begin to chastise, oh, these young people don't know anything. Well, no, they just know different stuff.
Yeah.
And guess what? Because the first time when I have problems with my computer, do I ask my buddy at 50 to help? No, I ask my son at 20, help me out. I don't understand this.
Yeah.
So all of a
I think
sudden, he becomes the smart one.
I think where adults get upset is when they ask for help, but young people don't want to help because they're so lazy. You know what I'm saying? I think that's a problem. But yeah, Jeff.
It's just different. You know, the other day somebody asked us, a young person asked this question, like, how do I create passive income? Because I think, unfortunately, young people think passive income is like money that just comes in out of the sky.
Yeah.
And that's not true. Passive income comes as a result of hard work
Or over 30 years. Well,
yeah, that you've created as an investment.
And that's mostly in real estate, I feel.
It is. It's real estate or a business, right? You've created a business that now produces a positive revenue.
But they probably say passive income in the sense of like what kind of job can I get where I can just kick back?
Well, you nailed it on the head, because the follow-up was, he was asked in return, what do you mean by passive income? And he said, quote, this is great. He said, quote, I'd rather be on a beach in Mexico sipping Mai Tais than working 9 to 5. So he missed the point altogether.
Yeah.
You don't create any income, passive or active, by sitting on a beach.
Yeah.
However, there is a whole new generation now with social media where, for example, people make money by doing things that I consider not worth money at all, but like TikTok, for example, right? You can now pay for someone to say happy birthday to you based on their level of notoriety. It depends on how much they're going to charge, anywhere from $2 to $500 to $1,000 to sing you a happy birthday. And like, you're thinking, this didn't exist a year ago.
Yeah.
Let alone 5 to 10 years ago. So you have these burgeoning markets that haven't been there. And guess what that is? That's innovation.
That is innovation. That's our point.
Yeah,
it's true though, man.
I think it's silly, but you know what?
There's a lot of ways to make money nowadays.
Tons of more ways that we didn't have 20 years ago.
But you have to work.
You got to work.
I don't even care. I don't care if it's like a dumb thing to make money on. I think it still requires work. You know what I'm saying?
It does require work. Yep. It does.
But yeah, one last question, Jeff.
Uh-huh.
With EV Pros or Sheets, what is one way you're trying to innovate? Like, is there any thoughts you've had on innovating?
Yeah, a lot of times what we do is we do internal innovation. Electrical, by and large, is the same as it's been for the last 100 years. You connect cables together, and I don't want to dumb it down, but very involved. It requires years of training, and just like any profession would. But how we innovate ourselves is internally. We continually build into our employee staff, continual new training of them, new codes, what's coming out, what are more efficient ways to do it. Right. So that's number one way that we innovate. Number two, how do we meet the needs of our clients in an ever-changing market? So for sheets, we're staying up on new lighting trends, for new efficiency trends. How do we deal with EMF mitigation? For EV Pros, we're dealing with it on how do we make this a better installation for you? How can we make chargers faster, better, cleaner? What more is on the market today? What's coming up? How can we serve you better? And then finally, it really has to do with customer service. We're re-innovating ourselves all the time. Is how do we make it so that our clients believe and truly understand the visceral attachment that they're being treated with value and respect. And how do we re-innovate ourselves to make them understand that they're our number one priority? They're not one cog in the wheel. They're not just our next client. They are our client for that day or month or week or whatever the case is. And we want them to be our client in perpetuity, forever and ever and ever. The greatest gift we get is when we've had some clients, we've done 3 and 4 and 5 installs for them through the years, where they move, and they don't even relocate. Yeah, they don't reach out to anybody else. They said, you took care of me before, take care of me again. Have a great day. And so re-innovating ourselves so we establish that rapport. And that's really what it's about.